it didn't last long at all, did it? Name a line in the picture. N-A. Can I just leave it that way? Make sure you're watching now so you understand this. We're not going over this again and again and again just because I enjoy hearing myself talk. 2 letters to name a line, and got to use the line symbol above it. Name a ray in the picture. Can I just do that? What?
Arrow.
1 arrow pointing to the right tells you it's a ray. Name a segment. Say it again. Everybody all right with that? Can I just leave it that way? Segment symbol. Make sure you're using the symbol every single time on all these. Name a plane. What do you have to make sure that you write? The word plane, it doesn't have a symbol, so you have to write out the word. I don't want it named plane B. What's the other way we could name it?
R-A-Z.
How many letters?
3.
So say it again. N-A-L. Everybody agree with that? Are there many, many different ways you can name it using 3 letters? Just whichever one, all right? Name 3 collinear points now on this one. I'm hoping you guys were careful on this, because you're going to be mad at me if I take off points for this. 3 collinear points. What's collinear mean?
On the same line.
On the same line. Name them for me.
N-A-T.
N, A, and T. Now, with this, usually you put no commas anywhere in any of this stuff. Some of you are putting commas like in between these letters. Don't when you're naming stuff. But here, should I put commas? What's a comma mean in English? Tells you that you're doing what with those 2 things? Separate. So if I just write N-A-T, that looks like maybe I'm almost trying to name a what? A plane or something else, right? And I'm not. Here I'm naming 3 points, so if you don't write out the word point N, point A, point T, then for those you should put commas in between. So I know that you have 3 different points there. Find X. What's these tick marks tell us about these 2 segments? If they are equal to each other, that's what those tick marks tell us, that they're the same. What equation can I set up?
2x plus 2 equals 3x plus 8.
Now, we did several different things with this. You got to remember, they're telling us they're equal. Then those 2, you set up those 2 expressions equal to each other, and you solve it to find X. How do I solve for X there? These cancel out. What's left on the left?
2 plus 2.
On the right?
X minus 8.
Now what?
Plus 8.
Which one? I heard 2 different things. One? 10? Do we have to go back and plug it in? Do anything else? Would they ask us to find? Just X, so that should be our answer. Where's anybody confused at on that quiz? Don't be afraid to ask.
We use like any of the other points, like name a line, LR.
Yeah, you could have used any of them, and I'll know that when I grade it. So is the only line that you could have named line NA for the first one? No, there's many, many different ones. Do we want to really list all of them out? Probably not. All right, but Ebersole will know when he looks at when he goes to grade the quiz, is that a possible answer? Yes. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. When I grade these, think I even look at these letters? I don't even look at them. All I care about is what were we naming? A line. So what symbol should you have? Line symbol. And how many letters? 2. That's all I look at. Now, so if Colton wanted to be a smart aleck one of these times and pick some point C that's not even in the picture, if Ebersole's not paying attention, then he wouldn't have had any idea. He could have wrote down line CD. Now I'm gonna watch, because I'm gonna something like that. I wouldn't have had any idea. I look at it, you got 2 letters, that's a line. Got the line symbol, that's what I look at. I'm hoping that none of you would actually pick letters that aren't even on the picture to name any of these. That's why I said, if you look at my answer key probably looks something like this. Something like that. Notice, is there a line NT in this picture? Is there a ray NT in this picture?
Yes.
Is there a ray or a segment NT in this picture?
Yes.
All that matters here, is there somebody wanted to be cute and they wanted to do this? Is there a line LO in this picture?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Up there.
Even though it's not drawn in there, is there one somewhere in the world that goes through L and O right there on that plane? Yeah. Don't make this harder than it is. Make sure you're learning your symbols and using them all the time. On the homework, page 39, questions. Make sure you're asking, because the stuff we're doing today, a little more difficult. Sort of the same thing, but on a coordinate system. So it makes it a little harder, twice as hard. Or you got to do twice as much. 28. Neonatal. At birth, the ratio of babies' head length to the length of the rest of their body is 1 to 3. If a baby's total body length is 22 inches, how long is the baby's head? So you got your baby here, that's her head, neck, that's her body and their legs. Said the ratio of head to body is 1 to 3. I think that's what it said, right? What'd they tell us?
Body is 22 inches.
The body was, or the whole baby?
The total body.
What's the whole baby? The birth of baby's head length to the length of the rest of the body is 1 to 3. The total, so they're saying the total thing. So this whole thing is, they've worded it sort of not good. The whole baby's 22 inches long. Well, we know that this part should be, what part of that?
1/3.
It's the one part, right? Not just one, but, and then this part should be the 3 parts, right? How many total parts do we have there? 4 total parts. So the head is 1 out of 4. That's your head when you're born. The body is what part, or what fraction? 3 out of 4. What'd they ask us to find?
Head
How big the baby's head is? How do you think we're gonna do that?
times 22 by 1.
So you just take the head part here, 1 out of 4 times 22, you might want to get out your calculators. If we do it out longhand, what's 1 times 22? What's 4 times 1? Somebody divide that for us.
Yeah, 11.
What is it? 5.5. So how long is the baby's head?
5.5.
5.5 inches. Does that seem about right?
Yeah.
Could we figure out how long the body is?
Yeah.
Could do that same thing, or we could just do what? How long was the whole baby?
22.
And we could subtract off 5.5 for the head, and we could figure out how long the body was. Other questions? Hunter, did you know what neonatal meant before that? Anybody know what neonatal means? It's just dealing with babies. That's all it means.
27.
27, social media. Tito is posting a photo and needs to resize it to fit. The photo's width should fill 4/5 of the width of the page. On Tito's screen, the total width of the page is 3 inches. How wide should the photo be? So they want it to fill 4/5. All right, so most of the page, right? Same idea, you're gonna times that by how wide they say the whole page was. Somebody multiply this for us, what's 4 times 3? 5 times 1? Somebody divide that for us.
It's 2.4.
Not a good way to measure this, because what's our units? Inches. If you look on your rulers, is there anywhere on there that says 2.4 inches? Now, I will show you this real quick before we go on. If you were on the ruler and you're trying to be that precise, what you could do is, you have 2 inches, and we want that fractional part that would be on the ruler, like the 16ths, the 8ths, the 4ths, all that stuff that we went over when we dealt with the ruler. You could take that 0.4 and times it by the conversion number. This again is why the metric system is so much easier than the standard system. Times it by the conversion number. Well, what's the conversion number for feet and inches? How many inches are there in a foot? 12. So we take that 0.4 and times it by, that's not right. Sorry, I'm thinking that we have feet here, and we don't, we have inches. So we got 2 inches, but we want the fractional part. No easy way to do this other than maybe use your head a little bit. All right? 0.4 is close to what? As far as on your ruler. If you were on your ruler, about 2.5. So we might say it's about 2.5 inches. It's going to be a little off, but that's why the standard system is not a good system. Other questions?
Hi. I need to take that young man with it, that's all right.
Who's that?
James.
Yep.
Trips?
Almost.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I've got my book.
You can leave your, I mean, that's up to Mr. Ebersole. I mean, I'd probably put it in your bag.
I don't got a bag, I got my marker.
Yeah, we'll come back up and grab it.
Alright.
Other questions? 22?
Yeah.
Caroline is taking a road trip on I-70 in Kansas. She stops for gas at mile marker 36. Her destination is at mile marker 353 in Topeka. but she decides to stop at an attraction 3/4 of the way after stopping for gas. At about which mile marker did Caroline stop to visit the attraction? Should make one of you guys read it, because I can't read it very well. So that was 22, is that right? So I'm gonna make myself a number line here. Where did Caroline start at? I think they said, didn't it?
Yeah, 36.
So that's where she stopped for gas, that's where we're going. So she started at mile marker 36. She's driving along through here in her car. And she was trying to get to Topeka, which was at what,
353.
353?
Yep.
She's driving along and she stopped, tell me when she stopped.
3/4.
So somewhere about in there maybe, who knows? She wanted to see some attraction. And that was 3/4 of the way, so we're trying to find that. 3/4. We had a little formula last time. What was that formula? What did we do?
The
If we had the fraction, we just did what?
like, don't you do 353 and then minus 36?
So we take, it was like the starting or the ending point minus the starting point, right? We'll find the distance. Then we take that distance times the fraction.
Yeah.
And then, once we did that, then we add that answer to the starting point. So somebody help me out with your calculators. What's 353 minus 36?
317.
Once we know it's 317, we just take that number times 3/4. Probably nice to have a calculator this time, right? Does everybody remember how to do fractions on your calculator? Do you really have to do the fractions? We're probably gonna change this into a decimal anyway, so. So yours doesn't, see, and that's a bad thing, you might wanna change it to a decimal, because your calculator leaves it as an improper fraction instead of changing it. What's it come out to be?
I got 951 before.
Divide that, what's that give us? That's, we don't want that improper fraction, that's why your teachers didn't want you to leave it that way.
237.75.
Say it again?
237.75.
So that means she's went out how many miles from where she stopped and got gas at? About that many? Now, what do we do once we have that answer? Is that our answer? We take that answer and we, let's, as a matter of fact, before we go on, that's about how many miles? Let's round it.
37.
About 238 miles. And we add that to what? 36. What do you come up with? What is it? What's 274? Go back to the problem and think about it. What's 274? That's the mile marker, right? That's not how many miles she's went, that's the mile marker that she stopped at, somewhere close to the 274 mile mark. What did we just say? That's not the miles, that's the mile marker. Let's help Jacob out. Anybody know what a mile marker is along the road?
Like, isn't it the signs that like tell you what exit? I don't know.
Anybody know what they mean?
No.
So you go to, say again?
How far away you are from the state
So if we go out here and we hit 35 and we go jump on 70, when when we get to Richmond, the exit to get off on 40 in Richmond, anybody know what mile marker that's at? What exit it is? One. You know why? Because it's 1 mile into Indiana. So if we're looking at, you got Ohio and then you got Indiana over here. The mile markers, just because Indiana's close there, as we take 70 into here, you start off with mile marker 1, then what's the next one? 2, and then it goes all the way across till you get to the other side of Indiana, and it'll be like mile marker 178. All right, now if you coming back, guess what it does?
It's backwards.
So it starts at 178 and it goes down to 1. And that's the way all the interstates work. So if you're on an interstate, what it's telling you is how far into the state you are, or how much more you got to go till you're out of that state, depending on if it's going forwards or backwards. If you didn't grab the notes, go up there and grab them. Start filling in what you need to fill in once you get back to your seats. Again, a little tougher this time.
It was like 2 weeks ago.
It is.
Yeah, he gave me one the same day. I still have one. I mean, it's like empty.
Start with the title. Sort of like what we did last time, except last time we were dealing with everything on a number line. Now we're going to be on a coordinate plane. And if you're on a coordinate plane, then that means instead of just having a starting point and ending point, you got coordinates for each of those points, so it makes it a little tougher. What's initial mean again? That's where you're starting at. Give me a second. I gotta record this, so right up here where it says initial, that's where you're starting. Might want to write that in there. What's terminal mean again? That's where you're ending. Now these steps that we're going to do, basically the exact same as the steps for a number line, except you got to do them twice because you're doing it for X's and for Y's. Miles here in a second. get to a point, I'll tell you to freeze it and go back there and kill your pass. So the first step, calculate the differences. So you might just write subtract. So you're going to subtract the x's for your 2 points, subtract the y's for your 2 points. Step 2, just like the other one, you're going to take the answer that you got from each of those. Here's one answer, here's the other answer. And you're going to multiply it by the fraction that you're given. So whatever fraction they give you, 1/4, 3/5, 5/8, whatever it happens to be, you're going to multiply by that. You're probably going to use what to do that? Your brain? Hopefully not Sawyer. You know how far that gets you.
Pardon me, teachers, for the interruption. This is a test page. This is a test page. Thank you.
Okay. Probably going to use your calculator. Just take the fraction times that. Again, on some of your calculators, I know on Sawyer's, he said it was giving him that big old fraction or with the big crazy top number and stuff. Then you got to know that that means division. You probably want to change it to a decimal form. So just take the top number divided by the bottom number and hit equals, and don't make it a fraction then. The last thing, you're going to take your 2 answers that you got from up here, so that whole answer, and you're going to add it to your x that you started at. You're going to take this answer and add it to the y that you started at, and then it's going to give you some ordered pair. That's going to be the point that we're looking for. So you're going to have 2 different answers. You're going to have an x answer, you're going to have a y answer. Same steps that we did last time, it's just you got to do it twice for everything because you got x's and y's. This is what the formula looks like. If you wanted to do it all out as just one thing, Jacob J over here just wants to, he doesn't like doing all those steps. He just wants to do it as one thing. He could do it just like that right there. And you could type all of this into your calculator just that way. Once you get it written down, I'm going to ask. Yes, I'm horrible because I like to list things out. I like to do things step by step. And that's just Ebersole. Most people don't. And I forget that all the time, that most people aren't like Ebersole. And you'll see, if I pull this out of my pocket, my family makes fun of me because I got little papers like this all over the place. List things I have to do. That's not most people. So if you would rather do it this way, I understand that. If you would rather do it step by step, then that's the way we'll do it. So I'm asking you right now, which way do you think it's easier just to plug everything into this one little formula here and do it all as one, or should we do it separate, step by step? Separate? You say what? This whole thing? Any other opinions? Jalen, no opinion? You don't care? Which one do you think's easiest?
Just plugging it all in.
Plug it all in? So we'll try that for a couple of them. So this, we're gonna plug it all in here. Again, you gotta know that your X1 comes from where? That's your starting point. Your x2 comes from where? Your ending point. x1 again from the start. y1 from the start. y2 from the end. y1 from the start. We'll make it harder on poor Drew this time. He's the one that said that he wanted it done step by step. We'll do it the other way. Is this on your notes there somewhere? I think it's on the back, first page probably. First thing I want you to do, graph those 2 points on your graph. I'm gonna graph them up here, you graph them on your paper. When you do this, do you always have to put the x and the y axes right in the middle? Don't do that, all right? Most of the time, my graphs won't be big enough on your paper to do that. This time it probably is, but most of the time it won't. Don't always put it right, 0, 0 right in the middle. Look at your numbers and see what you need. Looks like we need a -7, so that's going out this way for x, so we need a little bit on this side, quite a bit on this side. We got a y that goes up to 8, so we need quite a bit up. I don't know, because this time it's actually probably going to be best to be about where? About in the middle. So I don't know. After I said all that, then I looked at numbers. It looks like that point shouldn't even be there, but that's, so just draw it, graph them. We're going A to B. So we're starting at A and we're going to B. So is A our starting point or our ending point? Starting point. So this is our x1. That's our y1. This is our x2. That's our y2. I'm just labeling those. I'll give you another second or two so you can graph them while I graph them up here. -7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's point A. Again, I probably said this in the past, but I don't know. See that stray mark going up through there?
Yeah.
That means absolutely nothing. That means my pen messed up on me. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, I got to count out loud. I know that probably messes some of you up. That's point B. That's our segment that we're looking at. Everybody's looked something like that?
Yep.
Now remember, what we're doing on this, we want some point C on here that's 3/4 of the distance. So what we're doing, and I'm going to do this one time, then I'm not going to do it anymore after this, is we're splitting this up into how many parts? 4. How many times do I have to cut it if I'm splitting it into 4 parts? So if I go 1, 2, 3, wow, that's horrible. It should be something about like that, where all 4 of these sections are about the same. We want to go out how many of those sections?
3.
So out 1, 2, 3. So we should be somewhere in that general vicinity. Mine's not very close, but that gives us a general idea. So tell me something that you know right now about your x and your y of your final answer. They both should be what? They both should be a positive. So if we come up with something negative, negative, something down here, we probably messed up somewhere. So we're looking for that point right there that if I start walking right here, Hunter starts walking right here, I'm going to walk what part? That's normally true. That's the way it normally would be, but this time I made myself a little better than that. I'm going to walk 3 of the parts, and Hunter's going to walk how many of the parts? 1. So we want to find that point where that happens. Somebody help me out with that big long formula. What does it say? x1 plus A over B, that's the fraction, times what? X2 minus X1, close the parentheses, then a big comma, right? Then the same thing, but with the y's. So y1 plus a over b, ignore that, times x2, or not x2, y2 minus y1, close that parenthesis. This should be a big parenthesis, so we're going to end up with an ordered pair. We got an x coordinate, we got a y coordinate. What was our x1? So let's write that down, -7 plus, what's our fraction this time? What's our x2? 6 minus, what was our x1? -7. Be careful. What do we do when we have a minus and a negative? Plus plus. Should we go through and just find the x first? Is that gonna make it easier than worry about the y's? Or should we do them both at the same time? It's up to you guys. Do them both? You guys gonna let Drew decide something? What's our y1?
-5.
Everybody agree with that? Plus, what's our fraction? 3 over 4. What's our y2? Minus -5 again. What's going to happen there again? If you grab your calculator, you can type all of that right into your calculator just like it is. You might want to, trying to think the best way to deal with the fraction here. Just type this in it. What's that fraction bar mean again? Divided. So just type it in, -7 plus 3 divided by 4, parenthesis, 7, or 6 plus 7, close the parenthesis. So type that in just like it's a division problem. We'll just go with the decimal answer if it doesn't come out all nice and even. We'll be fine with that. Make sure you're trying it on your calculator, because if you get the wrong answer, we want to know why. What did anybody get? 2.75, Sawyer says. Anybody agree with that?
For some reason I got -46.
You got negative what?
46.
Does that sound close? Just try it again and see what, maybe just type something wrong. Are we going with 2.75? Is that what it is? What's 2.75? That's the x coordinate of the point where we're trying to get to, right? 3/4 of the way up this segment. Type all that in. Yeah, just half and half, one to X, one to Y. So we gotta keep them separate. What did we come up with? Everybody agree with Sawyer on that?
Yeah.
So at what point am I and Hunter gonna meet at?
2.75, yeah.
That's the point we're gonna meet at. Now let's go out here and see if it makes sense. 2.75, how am I gonna find 2.75 on this? Go out, do I go out just 2?
Go more towards 3.
More towards 3, so about almost to 3, and then I go up how much?
4.75.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then almost to 5, so somewhere about right in there. Is that about what we guessed it was gonna be at? Yeah, not too far off. That's our point. So that's the point, that on this original segment is,
Pardon me, teachers for the interruption, this is just a test, this is just a test, thank you.
that's the point that's gonna be 3/4 of the way up this segment. On this one, I've already graphed it for you. I guess I graphed it for you on the paper, right?
Yeah.
So what we have to do is find the coordinates. So take a second, nobody holler out the answer. Find the coordinates for B first. And then find the coordinates for A. Anybody find the coordinates for B?
Yeah.
What are they?
2, 9.
Anybody else get 2, 9?
Yes.
Is that what we're going with? So make sure you got that written in there. How about for A?
-8, -6.
Everybody agree with Drew on that one? -8, -6, that don't sound right. Is that what everybody got? All right. What's different about this one? Where are we starting at? This says distance from, so where we start,
B.
we're starting at B and we're going to A. So sort of going backwards down it. Let's see if I can be a little more precise this time. You got, how many spaces are we splitting this segment up into? 5, so how many times am I gonna cut it? See how close I can get here. Be a little more precise. Those look pretty even. Not too bad. I'm still a little long there. So we're starting at B. And if I'm the one doing the walking here, how many spaces am I walking? So we're guessing that we should end up somewhere right about in there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We're going 2 of the spaces. Miss Mann's walking down here. How many of the spaces is she gonna walk? 3 of them. I'm gonna walk 2, she's gonna walk 3. Let's just do the X and let's do them separate. I can't. My head won't wrap around doing it all as one. Huh? This, X1 or X2? X1, this is Y1, this is X2, Y2. So let's just do the x's. I think the formula said x1, what's x1 this time? Plus a fraction, which is 2/5, times,
X2 minus X1.
what's x2?
Negative
Negative 8 minus, what's x1?
2.
This is for your x's. Type all that into your calculator. You're doing such a fine job typing it in there. Get the right answer and everything. Because you're such a genius. That's fine. What did anybody come up with?
Negative 2.
I heard -2, I got 4,
Or -4.
-4. Any other guesses? Ms. Johnson, you get any of those? You got -2? I'm sort of thinking I want to go with Sawyer because he's a genius, isn't he? He's
But I
not.
put it in twice. Got the same thing.
I thought he was a genius. I'm sorry. Sawyer, how come they don't think you're a genius, but I do? They don't have as much faith in you as I do they? He's not even listening to me. What are we going with? Jacob, what'd you get over there? You quit on me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Remember when you type in the 2/5, what do you type in? 2 divided by 5?
Yeah. That's what I thought.
What are we going with?
Negative 2.
-2? So what's our x coordinate point where me and Miss Van are gonna meet up at? -2. Now we gotta do the same thing for the y's. What's y1?
9.
9? What you got for me, Drew?
Can you just like go up to the line at that point? Because, you know, it would be past the line.
Maybe, but then we're just sort of estimating it, right? So, let's get it mathematically. The other thing I would say is on most of your calculators. Yeah, I don't know, I'll tell you that, because it's just gonna confuse you probably. What's our y sub 2 this time?
Negative 6.
Minus, what's our y sub 1?
9.
So this is for the y's. Type all that into your calculator. Stuff like that.
James Nicholson.
Oh, how do you do that?
I gave you permission.
What did everybody get?
3.
3? Everybody agree with that? Because Sawyer's a genius, so we know he couldn't miss 2 in a row.
It's not genius.
I'm not Albert.
So what point are we gonna meet up at?
-2.
-2, 3. Let's look at this. If I go out -2, up 3. I thought I did my marks a little better than that. I was still quite a bit off, but is that pretty close to where we guessed? Yeah, it's not too far off. Give me an answer that you would have known was incorrect on that problem.
-5.
Say it again, -2, -2. Could the answer be -2, -2? No, it's not gonna fall on the segment. All right, so you can have some idea if you graph it where you should be about. If we're doing a ratio, fill in what you need to fill in on this one. Same idea. So ratio one. Meadow, any of this making sense? Are you lying to me? Let me quit talking to you. So if you're given a ratio, just like last time, if you're given a ratio instead of a fraction, then just use this formula. Same formula again as last time, except now you got X's and you got Y's. That's where I scratched it. I'm still throwing stuff back. What's our N stand for again?
That's the ratio.
It's the second number in the ratio, so second ratio, that's N. I don't know, we did this last time, you can decide if you want to do it or not. What's the M stand for?
First ratio.
That's the first number in the ratio. And it works for both of them. So you're just gonna plug into these two formulas again, find your X coordinate, find your Y coordinate. There's always graph paper over here, I probably mentioned this last time. Some things like, again, I forget which class I mentioned it to and which ones I haven't. Did we talk about all the papers over there last time? All right. The other thing that I need to make sure I mention, I'll probably mention it 75 or 80 times, is I send around the email each day that's got a video, so if you happen to be out, keep yourself caught up that way. All the notes and stuff are right on there. Get on there and do it. So that way when you come back, you're not behind or stop in during intervention. I'll give you the paper notes, but don't get yourself so far behind. Some of you've been out, get yourself behind and it gets hard to get caught up. Anybody have any idea why this says that? I didn't mention it last time. M does not equal negative N.
Oh, it's not the negative version.
What would happen if you had like 5 and negative 5?
It would equal up.
What's 5 plus a negative 5?
0.
And then we're dividing. When you divide by 0, what happens? You get error. You can't do that. So that's why it says that. That's never going to happen to us in this situation because our ratios shouldn't have negatives in them anyway. Again, your initial point, this is just explaining it out. I'll put this on the notes there. Your initial point, know your starting point. Know where your ending point is. And know which point we're trying to find in the middle there. actually find in here. Take a second, graph those 2 points on your graph. I'll graph them up here. Let's see, we got -5 and 6. Got 2 and -2. Doesn't really have to be right in the middle this time. We'll do something like this. Something like this. -5. 2. That's point A. Point B. That's terrible. Does that help anybody when we estimate where it should be, or should we just go ahead and do the math? Huh? So just do the math. Let's do our x's first. The x part of the formula said what? N times
Yeah, n times x1
plus
plus n times x2.
m times x2, all that divided by m plus n, is that right?
Yeah.
Ignore that stray mark going up through there. This says find C on AB such that the ratio of AC to CB is 1 to 2. Are we starting at point A or starting at point B? Starting at A, so -5, what is it? X1, what's the -2? Y1, what's the 6? X2, what's the 2? Y2. So label those so you don't forget what they are. How do we know which one's N and which one's M?
N's the second one.
N is the second one, and M is the first one, just like in alphabetical order. M, N. So tell me how to write out this formula here. What is it? 2 times, what's x1?
-5.
-5 plus 1 times 2. Everybody agree with all that? Yes, no, maybe?
Why is it y2? Should be 6.
Should be 6.
Yeah.
So that should be a 6. What's on bottom? 1 plus 2. Remember, do the top first. So type all that into your calculator, just the top. What anybody get?
-4.
Everybody agree with Drew on that, -4? You want me to do the bottom? Is it too hard, Hunter? You want me to do it? All right, so what's the bottom? 3. Is that gonna come out all nice and even if you divide it? So on something like this, you could, instead of grabbing your calculator and giving the decimal answer, what is that as a mixed number? I know it's a negative. How many whole numbers? 1 and what? Close. 1/3. So something about like that. For our y's, same formula, right? Just changes the x1 and x2 to y1 and y2. What's n? 2. What's y1? Ignore that stray mark going up through there. What's m? Y2, sorry. It's 2. Sorry about lost my train of thought for a second.
Pardon me, teachers, for the interruption. This is a test. This is a test page.
How many tests did I need to do?
At least 3. What did anybody get on the top? -2? Is that what we're going with? 1 plus 2 again is what? Is that gonna reduce any? Before I write down our answer down here, let's go over here and look at this. How am I gonna graph? This is our X. That's our X right there. This is our Y. How am I gonna graph this? What's that tell me to do? If I'm starting at the origin. Go over just 1. Do I go to the right?
That's negative.
Go to the left, 1 and a third, so maybe somewhere like just past the 1 there a little bit. Everybody agree with that? So I'm right about here. Now what do I do? What's the Y tell me to do?
Go down 2/3.
Go down 2/3, so not quite 1 whole.
Yeah.
So that'd be somewhere right about in there. Does that look like that maybe falling on my terrible segment that I drew?
Yeah.
So is that a feasible answer? Is that a sensible answer? Yeah. Now, I don't care if you wrote this and you wrote it as the fractions, that's fine. If you wrote this because you used your calculator, something like that, is that pretty close also? Yeah. Does everybody know what 1/3 is as a fraction? Or I'm sorry, it's already a fraction. 0.3 repeating, right? Anybody know what 2/3 is as a fraction or as a decimal? 0.6 repeating. Again, make sure you get your answer, go back and look and see if it's gonna fall on the segment. And what I started to say a minute ago, you need graph paper, there's always graph paper over here to use if they don't have it in the books. Find R on segment QS such that the ratio of QR to RS is 2:3. Drag the numbers provided. This is supposed to be on a drag and drop on the website. We're not doing the website thing. Takes more time than it's usually worth. But we're gonna do this problem real quick. Same setup. -2. What's that get labeled?
X1.
X1. How about the -1?
Y1.
Y1. 8. X2. 5. The 2 up here gets labeled what? M. 3. N. For our X's. What's the formula? It starts off with N, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So 3 times, what's our X1? -2 plus, ignore that string mark. M is 2 times X2, which is 8. All that divided by 2 plus 3 on bottom. Do all that top for me. Sawyer said 10, anybody agree with that? On bottom you got 5, what's 10 divided by 5?
2.
What's 2?
X.
That's an X coordinate of our final answer, right?
Yeah.
The Y's, same setup. N is still 3, what's our Y1 this time?
-1.
Plus, N is still, or M is still 2, right? Sorry, I said it wrong. And what's our Y2? And then that's still 2 plus 3. And if I get on top on this one, I bet the bottom's still 5. Somebody help us out with 7 divided by 5. 1.4. Everybody agree with that? So what point are we going to be at if we go 2 to 3? If we split it up to 2 parts on one side, 3 parts on the other side? 2, 1.4. Too hard? This one. Sorry, I forgot a third page. Come up, grab that page. The assignment's on there. Again, if you need graph paper, you can grab it. Those of you who owe me old makeup work, please get it to me at some point. Otherwise, it goes down to 0. And for the last 3 minutes, you can just do whatever, but I'm going to go ahead and finish out my video and do this. A retailer wants to build a new shop between Jacksonville and Madeira. The retailer wants there to be a 1 to 3 ratio between the distance from Jacksonville to the shop and the distance from the shop to Madeira. So they're trying to find someplace in here on this stretch of road to build a new shop. And they want it to be 1 to 3 as a ratio. This says go by 2, so we're going to go by 2s on our graph here. So if I'm going to find Jacksonville, I go to this way 2, so that I'm going out to left 2, but that's actually, since we're going to go by 2s, that's going to be a -4. And then I go up 1 space, so that's going to be a +2. With here, I go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times 2 is 12. So that's 12 spaces out that way. Up 1, 2, 3. That's 3 spaces times 2 is 6. So 12, 6 is the point from the deer. Then I'm just going to do my X's and Y's just like we did on the others. Let's see here. This is, we're starting, let's see, distance from Jackson. Where are we starting at? Retail Jacksonville. We're starting at Jacksonville, so this is our start. So this is our X1. That's our Y1. That's our X2. That's our Y2. This is our M. This is our N. And we're going to put all that in. Let's see, N is 3 times -4 plus 1 times our X sub 2 is 12 divided by 1 plus 3 on bottom. 3 times -4 is -12. 1 times 12 is 12. That gives 0 on top over 4, which is 0. That's a nice easy X. Our Y's, 3 times our Y sub 1 is 2. 1, our X, or our Y sub 2 is 6. Over 1 plus 3 That's 6. Plus 6, that's 12. Have good rest. 4. That's 3. See you later. Keep it up, all right? I'll try.
By the way, it doesn't say this by 2. You can only.
You're in it. It doesn't say the same page.
Yeah.
Whenever you get the chance, can you stop by that?
I'm gonna tell them you were out in the hall that whole time. So our final point, 0, 3. So if I go and I look at this, the point where they're saying that we should make it, I go left or right, 0, and I go up 3. Remember, we're going by 2, so there's 1, 2, 3. So they should build their shop somewhere about there. Again, we were saying that we want 1 part on this side and 3 parts on that side. And that looks like that's about where it would be. So that's our point. This is our answer. And again, that's your assignment. 1 through 13, the odd numbers, 14 and 15.